What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and in this video, I want to have a video discussing Mark Jefferson and Life is Strange Double Exposure. Want to just try to let my mind run wild and see what we come up with. And you guys can kind of let me know what you think in the comments of, what role, if any, does he have on this game. Now, I'll tell you, it's not necessarily about like a physical thing. I'm not expecting the villain to return and, for him to be like let out of jail or, whatever it might end up being. But kind of talking about just his, the presence of him, right? Not necessarily physical, and what it could do to Max, and kind of go from there. This is actually something I was talking with Willow Winefield over on Twitter. I've talked about him before. He's actually going to appear on the channel very, very soon, and we were talking about Mark Jefferson, and we came to the conclusion that it's something I don't even think I've put too much thought in. So both endings, no matter which one you choose, you have to think about what you skipped, and this is actually something that I kind of get myself caught up in. I forget about this quite often because of the last second thing that Max does to save Chloe, which is going through the picture that Warren took at the end of episode 4. You negate the entirety of the dark room. But no matter what happens, I mean, if you save the town, right, you go back in time to the beginning of episode 1. So clearly Mark Jefferson is alive. Even if you choose to save Chloe, you just watch the storm hit the town. Again, that is the ending, in which the night before, or I guess maybe even just a few hours before, actually, right, the police showed up and arrested Jefferson. So no matter what happens, the guy's not dead. Now, it's interesting to me because it does open up a possibility of him appearing physically. And let me just say a few things. In terms of him literally being there, I don't think he would return, again, like I said earlier, from jail. Okay, I don't think you're going to just see him walk on campus and it's like the boogeyman has returned. However, we've had a couple different signs so far, and they've actually all came through the age rating type stuff. I very, very much believe, and it's already been hinted at, that we're going to get flashbacks, and we're going to get flashbacks specifically to Max in the dark room. Now, that doesn't have to mean super long scenes, but I absolutely think whether it's her sleeping and they kind of flash it at you. I mean, if you remember, a couple times when she would pass out in the first game, you would get the flashes, right? They would flash the storm at you 2 or 3 shots, and then she would wake up. And that happened a couple different times. I feel like it could almost be that where, again, it's a bad dream or something. And I will say this, will he return in some way? I actually think that's very possible because I think she's going to be haunted by those pictures of Rachel, the pictures of even Kate Marsh, right? I think those things are something that she could still think about, but specifically her being tied up to a chair. And again, it always kind of goes back to the geniusness of one, right? The stuff that they don't show, there's more done with Kate. There's more done with Rachel than, those pictures show. The pictures show them fully clothed, lying on the ground. I mean, it's not a good situation. They're drugged, and they're having their pictures taken by Mark Jefferson at these really weird angles. But, there's more that's going on there. And Max, we don't know the extent. I mean, as has been talked about, with those the conversations with her mom and dad, right? It seems like nothing too serious ever happened. He didn't touch her, and things like that. So, that's good. And I mean, that's something that she doesn't have to think back or flashback to. But she was drugged. She had multiple injections into her, right? She was, all those pictures being taken. And, maybe you don't go any further than that, but she could still remember that. So I would not, honestly, in terms of him actually appearing, I think he could, but I think he only would in some sort of flashback to episode 5. I would not be shocked if, there's long monologues in episode 5 of him and Max going back and forth with each other. I wouldn't be surprised if they flash back and they just had him say a couple lines, to her. And gotta be real, I actually kind of want that. I was thinking about this kind of all day today, and I was thinking, I would like to see him with this engine. What does he look like? Max obviously much more grown up, but she also flat out looks different because of just the technology change. He would still have to look like the 2015 version, right? They can't age him 10 years. He'd have to look like that, but it would be in this new kind of engine. So I get kind of interested in that one. And then, just his impact in general. I mean, this is kind of a little bit shorter than just, him being there physically, because I think we've kind of already discussed it here and there, right? The trauma should be there. And a lot of the trauma is tied to him. I mean, technically, Nathan is the one that, screwed up with Rachel Amber, and like that was a substantial part to it, right? But Jefferson really was, like the puppet master and the guy behind the scenes, and he had kind of marked Max ever since she took the picture, the very beginning of episode 1 of Life is Strange, when she takes the picture. That's him, marking her kind of for life. And so, yeah, he was very, very important. There's several things that were important in the first game, and there's kind of a few villains, right? But he was a big one, and specifically to Max's trauma, and one of like the root causes, like, he didn't shoot Chloe, and he really had nothing to do with kind of like that arc to it, right? But he kind of he had a part to play in a lot of the other stuff. So anytime that Max thinks back to most of the struggles of Life is Strange 1, any struggle you think of, most likely he is a part of it, right? So it's like I think he's going to get mentioned quite a few times. I think friends are going to bring him up. I think you'll maybe see texts and news kind of articles and stuff, because you got to remember too, like kind of the lore or like the legend of him, right? Like this is a big name professor. This was like a big get that he was at Blackwell and that they had him, and I mean, in fact, when Max is in the car ride with Chloe in episode 1, she says that Mark Jefferson is one of the main reasons why she even went in the first place, right? More than Chloe, more than her childhood friend, she went for this guy. So not only did she know of him before, but everybody in that circle knew of Mark Jefferson before, and she still does photography, right? So there's still that kind of influence. I almost wonder if like she would hear, when she's taking pictures, like would she hear? Because he always talks about like capturing people in certain situations and whatnot. Some of his kind of classic lines. I wonder if he would haunt her, with that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think we're gonna hear about him, or you're gonna hear that people know of him, right? Kind of all around Max, and I would not be shocked if that trauma of being tied up, and the darkest thing, and the thing that I keep kind of bringing up, but honestly I like the idea, I guess depending on where they go with it, it didn't even happen. Like that's the craziest part of it all. It did happen to Max, but it also never did, right? I mean, we talked about that with the parent text, right? Like all the stuff I just said, while it wasn't like as severe, maybe as like other characters, she was tied up, she was laying on the floor multiple times, he would hit her, all that stuff. He was aggressive, you get the injections, all that stuff. And technically, because of her choices, that didn't even happen, right? Because you skip literally the 1 hour, it's not even there anymore. So that's, I think, what makes it the most insane is she can have flashbacks. She can go back to that moment. She can have Jefferson saying things to her. And I mean, like, in a way it did, but also in a way it never even happened in the first place, which is just, that's cruel. That's like sick and twisted, but I actually think that's really, really clever. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure, as always, you're subscribed to the channel, bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you all on the next one.